When we look at the lives of older people and wonder why so few manage to live beyond 80, our minds instinctively leap to biology, to fragile bones and weakened hearts, to the slow and quiet betrayals of the body that we have been taught to fear since childhood. But beyond the laboratory and hospital corridors lies a far more intricate, often invisible web of reasons that hold many back from embracing those final decades of life. Reasons not embedded in cells, but in society, in how we as a collective have chosen to treat aging and the people who embody it. Because in so many parts of the world today, aging is not celebrated as a gradual unfolding of wisdom and stories, but instead shrouded in loneliness, economic hardship, and a persistent erosion of identity and purpose. As if once a person retires or becomes slower in their steps, their value gently dissolves in the eyes of their community, leaving them to navigate the remainder of life with a sense of emptiness rather than anticipation. And consider how modern cities are designed. Tall, imposing buildings with staircases that discourage movement, public transportation systems that seem oblivious to slower walkers and those who need a resting bench every few blocks, environments that unintentionally, or perhaps intentionally, push older individuals inside, away from parks, squares, and vibrant communal life. And once inside, the walls echo with silence, as children and grandchildren move away in search of economic opportunities or simply new adventures, driven by a culture that idolizes youth and mobility over rootedness and connection. So the older parent or grandparent who once played the center role in family gatherings slowly becomes an afterthought, someone call on birthdays or during emergencies. And in these long, quiet hours, many elders find themselves wrestling with profound, heavy loneliness that creeps in and tightens its grip, stripping away the desire to make plans for the next season, the next year, the next decade. Because why plant seeds when no one will help water them or sit beside you to enjoy the blooms? And beyond social isolation lies the silent, but no less crushing weight of economic insecurity. For while movies often portray old age as a leisurely stroll through flower gardens or serene afternoons spent painting, the reality is many older people face the grim possibility of outliving their savings, confronting utility bills, rent hikes, and unexpected expenses that force them to make impossible choices. Heat or food, medication or transportation, birthday gifts for a grandchild or replacement for a broken appliance. And this constant economic anxiety gnaws at a person's sense of security and dignity, turning each day into a puzzle of sacrifices rather than a celebration of survival and continuity. And as society continually defines worth through productivity and output, older people who can no longer contribute in the same ways they once did begin to internalize a story of obsolescence, a whispering narrative that perhaps they are no longer needed, that their wisdom has no place in boardrooms dominated by tech jargon or in public squares overrun by youthful energy and speed. So they each retreat a quiet loss of the community, each withdrawal another thread snipped from the social fabric. And the lack of opportunities to contribute meaningfully or mentor younger generations further dims the internal flame that keeps people looking forward. That basic human need to feel necessary, to feel that one's presence still shapes the world. However subtly, and technology, which promises to connect us all, often becomes yet another barrier, an intimidating maze of interfaces and updates that few older people are taught to navigate, leaving them outside digital social circles, unable to join family video calls or community chats, unable to access services increasingly hidden behind apps and online forums, making the world feel like it is moving on without them, spinning faster and faster beyond their grasp. And even when some try to catch up, society rarely extends a patient hand to guide them, further reinforcing the painful illusion that life is no longer theirs to actively participate in. And alongside this digital alienation sits a gradual loss of identity. Retirement severs professional ties. The deaths of peers and partners erode social circles. Children leaving home weaken parental roles, and the familiar rhythms of everyday life are suddenly gone, replaced by endless empty afternoons and mornings with no reason to rise early. So slowly the person who once was a teacher, a builder, an artist, a caregiver, or a host of boisterous family dinners feels they become a shadow, a ghost in their own home. And this loss of identity is often compounded by a culture that equates age with decline and dependency rather than with mastery and narrative power, robbing elders of a chance to reimagine themselves in new roles or explore dormant passions. And in countries or communities where elders are revered, included in rituals and decision-making, and encouraged to share their life stories. We see far more people not just surviving past 80, but thriving, still gardening, dancing, sharing jokes with grandchildren, and waking each day with curiosity and gratitude. But in the many places where age is seen as a burden, each new candle on the birthday cake feels more like an ominous countdown than a victory lap. And environmental challenges only exacerbate the sense of shrinking possibilities. Harsh weather conditions, unsafe or poorly maintained infrastructure, and limited transportation options discourage elders from stepping outside, which in turn limits social contact and physical activity, deepening feelings of isolation and reducing spontaneous joys. And when severe weather events strike, floods, heat waves, ice storms, older people are often the first to be stranded without help, further enforcing a sense of helplessness and fear of the future. And so each year after 80 can feel like a fragile balancing act on a thin rope, overshadowed by practical worries, emotional voids, and a quiet sense of societal abandonment. And in the background of all this lies a collective narrative that youth is beauty, youth is productivity, youth is everything, a narrative sold on billboards, TV screens, and in daily casual conversations, a narrative that gently pushes the elderly to the periphery, to nursing homes, to isolated apartments, or to rural homesteads away from the bustling heart of community life, telling them they are no longer the heroes of the story, but merely supporting characters fading into the last pages. And this internalized ageism is among the cruelest weights to carry, because it attacks the spirit rather than the body, making each new morning feel like an obligation rather than an opportunity, and thus the struggle to live beyond. 80 is not just a question of beating the odds against disease or frailty, but about overcoming an entire architecture of social, economic, psychological, and cultural barriers that sap willpower, erase identity, diminish dignity, and fracture the vital connections that give life texture and purpose. And if we as society could reimagine aging not as a tragic final act, but as a rich, complex chapter deserving of respect, integration, and celebration, then perhaps more people would not only reach 80 but do so with hearts full of stories yet to tell, gardens yet to plant, jokes yet to share, songs yet to sing, and lessons yet to impart.